Financial scandal, abandonment of climate targets, delayed ferries. Well, the wind is blowing in the faces of the Scottish nationalists. Now they are even in danger of losing first place in polls. Around 2,000 people also demonstrated for Scottish independence in Glasgow on Saturday. The demonstrators waved Scottish flags as they marched through the Scottish metropolis, and the banner at the head of the protest read, "Believe in Scotland." The independence movement had recently lost support due, among other things, to a corruption scandal involving former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. "I've been for independence my whole life," was said by one of the people there to the AFP news agency. "I think we should have the right to run the country our way." And another protester called on his compatriots to support the Scottish National Party, the SNP, in the British general election this autumn, as it is the largest party supporting Scottish independence. The independence movement is currently in crisis. On Thursday, Sturgeon's husband Peter Morrell was investigated for embezzling donations totaling £600,000 that were actually intended for the campaign for Scottish independence again. The former SNP leader was temporarily arrested over the allegations over a year ago. His wife Nicola Sturgeon was also arrested in June 23, but the charges against her were dropped and she was released. In a referendum in 2014, Scots voted 55% against independence from Great Britain. After the Brexit vote in 2016, which did not have a majority in Scotland, Sturgeon put the issue back on the agenda. However, several British prime ministers rejected the Scottish government's plan for another independence referendum, and in November 22, the highest British court also rejected the request. And shortly afterwards, Sturgeon resigned as Scottish First Minister. In recent polls, support for independence among Scots is now only between 41 and 43%. However, the current Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf still wants to continue to promote independence in the election campaign for the British parliamentary elections, which are scheduled to take place in October or November. He's also committed to rejoining the EU as soon as possible. Many in his party were shocked by the very serious allegations, and this was the denominator that Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf used on Friday to describe the embezzlement charges against the former long-standing General Secretary of the SNP National Party. In his private life, Peter Morrell is, as I said, the husband of the longtime head of the Edinburgh government, Nicola Sturgeon. She was there from 2014 to 23, the former shining light of the independence movement. He's also considered a suspect by the Glasgow police in the affair over party finances that has been simmering for years. The sensational indictment and the impending criminal trial represent Yousaf's biggest, but by no means only problem in the beginning of the election campaign for the general election expected in the autumn. To this day, former Secretary of State for Transport Yousaf is still left with an amateurish approach to the procurement of new ferries for the many islands off the Scottish west coast. A company with no relevant experience was commissioned to build new ships. The corresponding test report spoke of a loss of millions. And constant delays in the deployment of new ferries are a constant reminder to the Scots of the failures of Yousaf's time in that office. At the beginning of the month, a new law against verbal discrimination against minorities proved to be a failure again. Within a week, the already completely overloaded police received more than 3,000 reports of so-called hate crimes. Women's rights activists were outraged that although disabled people, the elderly, Jews and Muslims, as well as transgender people now enjoy protection, misogynistic statements are not punishable. Climate activists are also very disappointed with the SNP minority government tolerated by the Greens. On Thursday, Climate Protection Minister Mary McAllen had to admit in the Scottish Parliament that the ambitions and the ambitious goal on the way to net zero from Sturgeon's time in office, the world-leading head of government vowed at the time, will not be met. By 2030, climate-damaging emissions in the north of the UK should be reduced by 75%. We can't achieve that, said McAllen, blaming reduced subsidies and the change in the attitude of the Conservative central government in London under Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. In fact, the Independent Climate Commission (CCC) also has little confidence in that goal. In the embarrassing financial affair involving the Sturgeon couple, the impressive sum of £666,953 is under discussion. The SNP had collected the money for the second referendum on Scotland's independence, which had been aiming for since 2017. And the project has so far failed, not only because of the vigorous resistance of the Conservative government in London, but also because of the Scottish-led Supreme Court of the Kingdom. In the referendum 10 years ago, as I said, citizens voted 55 to 45% for the continued existence of the Union. And questions about the party's finances and the independence movement, which is primarily supported by the SNP, have been around since 2020 at the latest, and the police investigation is now almost 3 years old. From the very beginning, the focus of all investigations was the long-standing General Secretary Morel, who served as the National Party's most important mastermind for 2 decades. Initially under the first SNP First Minister Alex Salmond, who now leads the new Alba Party. And when Sturgeon took over the party reins, Morel remained in office, which the almost Stalinist-led party accepted without complaint, blinded by the brilliant election results under the power couple. Morel and Sturgeon have always maintained their innocence in the financial scandal. But things look pitch black for the hapless Yousaf and his party, no matter how the criminal trial ends. The SNP's dominance is more at risk than it has been since 2011, analyses politics professor John Curtis from Glasgow's Strathclyde University. In recent polls, the SNP are neck and neck with the Labour Party under opposition leader Keir Starmer. So it's not going to be easy. But the Tories also continue with their scandals. It's not just the SNP. The British Tories are once again suspending a member of parliament. The MP is said to have used party funds for private purposes. The MP Mark Menzies probably wants to suspend his membership until the allegations are clarified. He didn't when I filmed this video. The British Conservatives have temporarily excluded this member of parliament from their group, who is said to have used party funds for private purposes. And Mark Menzies has agreed to suspend his membership until the allegations are clarified. The parliamentary group announced that on Thursday, but I didn't see approval yet. Menzies himself did not respond to inquiries from different news agencies. The Times had reported that Menzies had used party funds to pay for medical treatment and other private expenses. In December, he called a 78-year-old employee in the middle of the night and explained that he had been locked in his apartment by bad people who only wanted to let him out in exchange for money. The woman paid £6,500. She then received the money back from party donations. Menzies assured the paper that he had always followed the rules, but did not want to comment any further because of the ongoing investigation. He has represented the Fylde constituency in the House of Commons since 2010 and now continues to work there as an independent MP. Sometimes you see, as a non-native speaker, it's hard to pronounce all the names of constituencies, and if you want to, please write in the comments how to do that properly. If you want to see another video, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.